Raising the banner. We are back at it yet again. Don Tottingham, Garrett Kaloje with you. Garrett, 2 games already in the books today. The Toronto Maple Leafs drop a toughie to the Winnipeg Jets 5-2. And wouldn't you know it, the Rangers lose again 5-0 to the Devils on this pre-Christmas.
There are tomatoes being thrown across the Hudson today. I am on our Twitter page at X or at Raising Banner on X, and boy, the salt is very, very, very real, Don. I guess the Devils were playing a clip of when Rangers fans were cheering that the Devils got Jack Hughes because Capo Caco was better, and we saw how that aged.
Absolutely. Folks, we got a loaded show for you today, by the way. We're rolling into the World Juniors, which starts already, believe it or not, on Thursday the 26th. We'll have the schedules for you here in just a hot minute. However, we want to really break that down for you. We want to talk about the NHL's quarter-century team that's coming up. I can't even believe we're talking about the quarter-century already. I feel like we just got past the 75th year. But anyway, that shows my age and how old I am. So, talk about the 3 parts to the World Classic in Chicago. First and second teams there. Maybe even some Italian heritage and Olympic participations today.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like it. We're going to stay away from the Red Wings because I'm very passionate about that, and I'm very angry with this squad right now, Garrett. So let's just maybe, if we can slide those to the leftover plate for Christmas and get into that next week and let it maybe simmer.
That's what I'm thinking. Let's just slide it. Let's just slide it. Slide it under
into the trash can like the season.
Don't get moldy.
But Garrett, let me ask you this real quick off the top: Is Derek Lalonde? Let me see. How can I ask this question? Is Derek Lalonde basically what the last Red Wing head coach was 2.0? Is Derek Lalonde 2.0? That's the question I have. Because I feel if they were going to let him go, they would have already done it. Who the hell can you bring in right now to fix this? Because we don't have the players. And that's the thing. There's this discussion right now of they need to fire Derek Lalonde because he's lost the locker room. And that very well may be. But my question is, what does that do for this team right now? Do we go on a 16-game bender and then get back in this thing? Or does it matter? I mean, at this point, I really feel that the Red Wings' last head coach is slipping my mind. What's his name? I can't remember his name.
Jeff Blashill.
Jeff Blashill, thank you. Good God. So, yeah, is Derek Lalonde Jeff Blashill 2.0? Is he here just to see what we have on the talent level right now? I don't know. I don't understand this. Again, we'll talk about that after Christmas, but I just wanted to float it out there because it seems to me that Yzerman's staff right now is going to stay put with what we have because I don't think there's anybody out there that can make a difference with this team. I don't. So I just thought I would throw it to you real quick. It's kind of a curveball what we were talking about tonight. But
yeah, no, and it's a good curveball to ask, and I think there's the sample so far has shown that he probably is a lot more similar than different, but I also think last year could have been a
overachievement.
Last year may have been an overreach, and this year may have been the correction back to the mean.
But it seems that's the case. I think that's, you know what, Garrett, that's a really, really good, educated answer to my question. Because I think you're right. I think the expectation was set a little too high based on, if you will, maybe 3 to 3.5 really good months of hockey last year. It wasn't a full season, if you remember correctly. The Red Wings did not get off to a good start last season. It wasn't until that little jog in the end of December through January and the first part of February it kind of got all the juices flowing, right? And damn near almost backed in. So good point. I mean, I like where you're thinking with that. It was just interesting. So where do you want to start, Garrett? You want to talk about the quarter-century team first? Is that where you want to start with?
Yeah, I think that would be a very
all right.
just a fun, unique way. Something I kind of saw pop up on my newsfeed. I was on NHL.com, as I'm sure a lot of people who listen to our pod are. I was on there and I saw that the league was trying something different, but also new, and they were. This feels very similar to the NHL 100 campaign that they ran about 7-8 years ago, right? They were celebrating the 100th season of the NHL's, playing their 100th season as a fully functioning league or fully commissioned league. The league is planning on doing something I think is kind of creative and I think can get fans engaged. I think could be a pretty fun idea. Coming up with a quarter century team, and this was released on the 14th. By NHL PR, and it says that they're going to honor their best players in the last 25 years with a multi-phased quarter century team. And how they're going to roll it out is there's going to be two teams for each organization. So Wings will have a first team, Wings will have a second team.
So each team's going to have a quarter century team.
Correct.
Oh, I thought this was going to be like two lines of players from that. So that's awesome.
No, this is showing that this is going to be showing that at the Winter Classic later on this month, through the end of January, that each team will reveal its first and second quarter century teams, respectively.
Wow.
And it looks like that those teams are going to be selected by those are going to be private conversations for the first half of this discussion, right? So they're going to have two lines basically of players that, let's say it's media and former coaches or players, what have you, will vote on a list of players that best personifies that team's history in the last 25 years.
I can get behind that.
Then the fans get to place their vote as well from a remaining list of players as well, that then they'll be able to conduct their list as well. So it looks like this could be a fun and interesting concept because, I mean, depending on who you follow, depending on the team that you root for, the team that you're invested in, for us, obviously, it's the Detroit Red Wings. Mm-hmm. The 25th anniversary team is going to be quite star-studded. I mean, they won the 4 cups in 11 years, and
two other cup finals. The quarter century mark for the Red Wings is going to start at the year 2000. So we would already have 2 of those cups in the bag. So those 2 teams won't count.
Right. So, but how it's going to work is it's saying here that each club's first and second quarter century teams, and this will be through the end of January, will be selected by a panel of media, retired players, and executives specific to that club. And any player who appeared in a game with that respective franchise since January 1 of 2000 is under consideration.
Okay, so it's January of 2000. So that's interesting. So that's an interesting mark. So
yes.
So basically, for us Red Wing fans, the 02 team, you got to think, is going to be slam bam full of that, and a little bit of the 08 team, right? There's
probably be at least the first wave of them. I would imagine at least out of the 10 or 12 spots, if you will, because there's going to be the 2 lines, the three forwards, 2 defense, the goalie. You're going to have 2 for a second line. I'm going to imagine that you're probably going to have minimum 5 or 6 of those guys from that 02 team on there. Without a doubt.
Minimum is probably right. I mean, you got to think Dominic Hasek, and you can make the argument Hasek could be there for the 08 team too. You got to think Hasek, Osgood, probably locked for goalie. Nick Lidstrom makes both teams, I suppose. You got to think, that's the thing, Brett Hall's probably going to be on that squad. Obviously, Eisman, Fedorov would be on there. Darren McCarty.
So that'll be fun there.
Yeah.
Anyways, that part will be fun because, for those wondering, the Red Wings their list will come out on January the 23rd, so it'll be a Thursday night. I'm curious to see whom they're going to select for the Red Wings. I mean, yeah, it'll be probably the Lidstroms, the Datsuks, the Zetterbergs.
For sure.
Eisman might even have an honorable mention on there because, I mean, he did play now. The better part of his career was in the 90s, but he played the last half of his career in the mid-2000s.
Correct, yeah.
So
his last 2 seasons, or last 6 seasons. Yeah, his last 6 seasons would have been with the Wings there, so for sure. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so they're ending this, the last... And so the last team that'll go on the 31st is with, unfortunately, and very interestingly, the Utah Hockey Club, who has absorbed technically the history of, even though the name and the team stayed for the Coyotes, a lot of people are going to, I'm assuming, vote on Coyotes players to represent them on their behalf.
Yeah, and that is interesting because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Garrett, did the Winnipeg Jets take back the old Winnipeg Jets heritages from back when it was before they moved to Phoenix? So basically from the beginning of time to 95?
I would have to go back and look at what that agreement was, obviously. We'd have to go back and look at that agreement, right? Because I know that when Maruella was selling the Coyotes to Ryan Smith, there was some sort of agreement when it came to the actual history of that team.
Because the question I have is you're probably at that point you're going to have Shane Doan there and Teemu Selanne, and so how do you divvy that up? Obviously, the Ducks will probably have Teemu Selanne.
For example, just for posterity's sake, the 30th and 31st of this month are going to be the St. Louis Blues and the Chicago Blackhawks, so the two teams playing in the NHL Winter Classic will announce their teams first.
Oh, okay.
Now, this answers my question here. The Arizona Coyotes are then going to be on January the 1st. So essentially, the new Utah Hockey Club, you're basically going to have the top 2 lines voted on for their goaltending situation, which could be a little bit different. But then from there, the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers will have their roster announced on January the 3rd. The Seattle Kraken, the second newest team in the league, the newest expansion team, are going to announce their roster on January the 6th. The Jets, we just mentioned, they're going to be on the 10th of January. Vegas Golden Knights are going to be on the 12th of January. That's on a Sunday. And then rounding things out, like I said, was Utah Hockey Club before the Western Conference champion from last year. Edmonton Oilers are going to be on January the 30th. They're the penultimate team that'll be presenting. So at least that's the first part of this, Don. And then shortly after, so once each team announces their list of players, fans will then vote on the top 25 players of the last 25 years, regardless of position, that'll comprise of a quarter-century team. So as we mentioned before, it's going to be a little bit of a blend of both. You're going to satiate the needs of every fan base and then also vote on the top 25 players. And maybe we'll do this, Don, when this comes out. This looks like this edge of it will be a 2-week span over the Four Nations face-off tournament. So
we can have
running running alongside the Four Nations face-off, if you will. We may have to put together our list. And
I was going to say the Raising the Banner team. The All Raising the Banner team, Garrett. It'll be the first inaugural All Raising the Banner team. I like it. I like this idea.
We have to come up with our 25-man roster that we truly feel is the best of the last 25 years.
And you know what? It's first off, this is after we've talked about this now for the last couple minutes. This is more intriguing to me now because of the last 25 years, and this is not many sports could say they could do this. Every NHL team, with the exception of the Utah Hockey Club, right, as of right now, has had success in the last 25 years. Almost everybody, I think, has at least been into the second to third round over the last 25 years. I think the only exception might be the Buffalo Sabres and the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I think outside of that... And even the
Kraken the first year went to the playoffs the second round.
Correct. And so that's interesting. I don't think there's many sports that can say they could do that. I don't think. I mean, I might be wrong about that, but
and I'm curious to see. I mean, the league was so
in a 25-year stretch is what I'm saying. In a 25-year stretch,
the league went through such a metamorphosis where you had so many of these good players that were towards the end of their careers in the mid to late 2000s that then led way to the newer generation and maybe the 2010s and now here into the 2020s. And we're just kind of seeing this as like just a new age of player. And I'm not saying that the late 20-aughts and the 2010s were a transitional period, but it'll be interesting to see how many of the players from, let's say, the mid to late 90s who have their careers later on, how many of them are able to do that. And you know what, Don? I think we'll touch base on this. I'm going to post this up on our page. I'm going to put this out here. I'm going to try and gauge everybody's feedback on it at Raising Banner on X.
Yeah.
I already have this bookmarked on my own personal computer, so if you want to bookmark it yourself and you're listening to it and you want to kind of put together your list for the team that you follow, go right ahead. But I think this is kind of a novel idea that I think the NHL is doing a really nice job with, and I truly think that this makes it feel better than the NHL 100 because a lot of the players are active and a lot of the audience has seen them play. And yet I also think that it meets the requirement to also tailor it to each fan base. And I think that's important.
Yeah. So you have a person like me who's old as dirt. And I was watching hockey when Mario Lemieux was making it into the league. Right? I'm just going to use Mario as an example. So Mario's career ended 2004, I think. So realistically,
I think it was like 04 or 05, somewhere.
Yeah, but it was before. It was before the strike. So I'm fairly certain that Lemieux is obviously going to make it for the Penguins. I can't imagine he wouldn't. But it's cool. To your point, how many of those players, even Wayne Gretzky could be another one you could even state, how many of those players, Garrett, will actually make this run? That's such the cool thing about it. God, watching the game in the late 80s and 90s is so different. I really wish you could have watched it back in those days, man. It was a different. Every team had its own like core superstars, right? Like the Red Wings were Yzerman, Fedorov for the most part, right?
Right.
The Penguins had Jagr and Lemieux; those were their two stars, right? Edmonton, obviously with Messier and Gretzky, right? And it just everybody had their two stars, and I'm just curious. I'm actually really intrigued with this now. I'm actually looking forward to this because I'm a big nostalgia guy.
Don, I'm going to send you this link. I'm going to post it on our page. I'm going to send this to you. You and I and everyone listening to the show, we got to come up with. Now the wheels will start turning. This will be a fun little exercise for us to get back and complete.
Yeah.
When the Four Nations face-off goes on as well, too, we're going to have a lot of time to think about.
We are
obviously deprived of hockey for most of the time, and it'll be very exciting.
Absolutely, I'm definitely looking forward to it. This was I wasn't thinking about it when I was thinking quarter century. For some reason, I was thinking 125 years and not 25 years. So I was like, all right, now we're gonna have to go back to 125 years. I'm like, and then you're like quarter. I'm like, damn. I was like, because it's such an interesting time frame because you're kind of splitting in that 25 years. You're kind of splitting the old guard, which was the new guard when I started watching. Those guys have started to retire at that point, and then you had this new guard kind of come in, right? And so, man, it's going to be interesting. This is going to be fun to watch, and I think I like the idea of how they're going to honor every team, and then you're going to have basically an all-world team, if you will, or an all-NHL team. As your all-star team, if you will, of that group. So that's just so cool. I know it doesn't mean anything, but I still think it's something to vote on, right? It's I'm not big on all-star games.
It makes you realize that. Yeah. It makes you realize, Don, just how quality the league has gotten in the last 25 years, and just the mark that those athletes have left on the game, and how many of them were able to kind of bridge the gap before, the 2010s, where you kind of were waiting on a new era of player to come in, and now you see it, right?
So you had said that there's going to be a first and second team where you're going to have 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie. So think of it one line and then another line, and that's all you're going to get. So I like that.
Well, for each team,
for each team,
vote from
right.
So the Red Wings will have a first line forward, second line forward, vice versa for their team, and then you and I, along with the masses, will be able to vote for a 25-man all quarter century team roster.
Wow. That's going to be hard to vote on. I'm not going to lie to you. That's going to be hard. There's going to be players that are going to be left off these teams that are going to be so deserving. And I know no one gets an award, no one gets a banner raised or anything like that. I get it. But I'm sitting here just in my head, and I'm thinking of 25 guys I could put on there right now, and I'm thinking, well, we got to leave this guy off. So that's going to be good banter for us, like you said, during the Four Nations stuff. I think that's going to be really good because we can talk about snubs and all that kind of stuff. So, man, that's going to be fun. That's going to be really, really fun. But speaking of fun, another thing has popped up with the Italian heritage and the Olympic participations. Now, what's kind of going on is since Italy was kind of separated and people left Italy during World War One, the Olympic participation has opened the door.
By the way, Don, if you hear something,
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt real quick. If you hear something real quick, I'm sending you this link for this through our Teams page that we're doing because we do our calls on Teams.
We do. They should be the sponsor. Anyway, so Garrett, going back to the Italian thing, certain people had left. Most folks left Italy during the war. They didn't want to be part of it. They came over to the United States. So what Italy is doing essentially is opening up their heritage for the Olympic participation to have players that probably would have had their grandparents in Italy that moved to the United States be able to represent Italy in the Olympic sport. So I think it's interesting. You and I have kind of talked about this off air, and you had asked me how I felt about it. And my feeling was, as long as it is just that, no further back than basically grandparents. Because what I don't want is like someone that's an eighth Italian being on the Italian. Like, come on. It's like we got to have a barrier there. And because of the war, I'm good with that. And the reverse of that would be if a player that was in Estonia, which now is used to be part of Russia, if they wanted to play for the Russian team, I would kind of understand that, even though I know that never would be the case. I get that. I'm not trying to say that's the case, but I see the flip. I see the reverse of it. So, I like this. I think it's fantastic, and not only that, it expands the game into an area where you could potentially start to have players grow up and watch the game and want to be a part of something like that. It's almost very similar to what Austin Matthews has done in the Phoenix area, right? And the game desperately needs that in Europe right now. And so I'm on board. I think this is a fantastic thing. I think you are as well.
Yeah, I had a little bit of, I guess, trepidation at first, but then I kind of went back to an example that you and I talked about off air when it came to the Mexican national team at the World Baseball Classic and a lot of the heritage there with their parents or grandparents or whatever it might be, the Chicano culture in the United States.
Right.
I think this can be good, and I think this can be good. I would have two concerns. I think one would be, does a player who's on the fringe for either team say he wants to play for his country? How does it impact their international status, right? Are they going to be a one-time thing? Are they allowed to play this? How does that impact their status moving forward, right? Because Italy obviously will have automatic qualification to the Olympics. They're hosting the next Olympics in roughly 11 or like 13.
Also a very good point.
13 months from now, though, Don, they're hosting the Olympics. So how does that impact their standing moving forward? I know FIFA, just for example, I follow soccer. I follow soccer more than you do.
You do,
but
absolutely.
In soccer, they have what's called a one-time transfer where you can change your representation for your federation. So, for example, you can change, if I wanted to, I could change say I was a world-class soccer player and I was not going to be able to make Team USA. I could change my affiliation to the Polish national team if I wanted to. But
if you did that, you can't switch back, though.
Correct.
It's okay, so it's a one-shot deal.
But in each international organization for each sport is different. So I'm curious to see how that would work with the IIHF, with the Players Association, with the NHL. Point.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting because I think it would have to be a one-time thing. You can't do kind of like, well, he was in Italy last time, and this time he's going to represent. So, yeah. If you're going to switch,
the thing that would make me, and then the second thing I think could possibly be the ramifications of a player maybe wanting to play for Italy versus playing for Team USA if they know maybe sabotaging their chances with Team USA to try and go play for Italy, knowing that it's a little easier to go to the Olympics and represent a country regardless of what it is. But
I don't think that's going to be the case, because I think what you're going to get is, like you just said a minute ago, where you wouldn't be good enough to play for Team USA, so you're going to go play for Team Poland, right? I don't think you're going to get players that are locks on Team USA to go play for Italy. I just don't think that's going to be the case, because you want to represent the country what you grew up in. That's just how it is. These players clearly have never. Maybe they visited Italy. I don't think they live there, and so at that point, I don't think you're going to see that. But I do think there's players that will be, as I say, borderline players that probably were the next set out for Team USA or Team Canada for that matter. Perhaps I think they could go over there and represent Italy, and I think that would be a good thing, because I think you're going to have a team that is probably deserving, like Italy is, and hey, they could make some noise, especially if they're going to host it, and I think that's a fantastic thing. But again, if you do that and you decide to flip your representation to Italy, I think you're locked. I don't think you can go back to Team USA in the next 4 years, when it's in, I believe it's going to be in Los Angeles then. So I don't think you can do that,
Well, or
Salt Lake City, sorry.
In 4 years from there, I think it's in Salt Lake City or something. Yeah, the summers but I would be interested to see. I would be curious to see what happens there. Again, there's just been murmurs out there, or there's been rumors of it out there. I've seen a tweet come up from a scout. He's a guy named Bernd Reimuller. He's a German scout, but he's in Europe. He covers a lot of this stuff overseas, I guess, for a lot of the European, press or whatever. And
right.
He just said that he just tweeted out that the NHL is eager to work with the IIHF on it. So we'll see.
I think it's a great idea.
If they brought it up to them, we'll see. But again, nothing's official with it. I think it could work. I for those curious about it, the IIHF has a rule that says players have to live in the host country for a minimum of 16 months to be eligible to play the Olympics.
That's correct.
And represent their country, or at least be part of the federation, if you will.
Correct.
But unfortunately, the Italian team probably not going to be anywhere close to being respectful. So we'd see how that goes. Again, I thought it was an interesting topic, Don, because it makes you think. It grows the game. It meets all the initiatives the NHL wants.
Checks all the boxes.
I think it could be a very perfect way for these players to honor a personal thing for themselves.
Absolutely.
I know for myself being a quarter Polish on my dad's side, right? Because my dad's both Polish and Canadian. Like for myself, I would have great pride in wanting to play for that, especially with my grandmother and her story and like my family history with that. There'd be great pride with, I'm sure, these guys being able to, go
Absolutely.
play for Nona, right? Or go play for what Nona's legacy was, or Papa's legacy, or, go play for their uncle, or not uncle's legacy, but their dad or a brother or something that was born over there, right? And have that affiliation with that. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pride for that, in terms of a family thing.
Well, think about it, Garrett. Think about it. You didn't get the opportunity to represent Poland because your family had to leave to survive. And when you really think of it from that perspective,
my grandparents did, correct?
Of course,
for those
but
who don't
again,
know, my grandparents
they left to survive. Right. They left to survive. Right. So, who knows what would have happened if they could have stayed? Maybe you would have represented the Polish team. Again, it's we don't know, and I think that's why opening that door, I think, is a great thing. I think I have absolutely no issue with it, and it doesn't hurt anything, in my opinion. And so I think it's a great idea. To me, it's a slam dunk. Anyone that's kind of fighting against it, I don't know why you would fight against it. It doesn't make any sense. But, Garrett, real quick, I wanted to mention one thing. Going back to the Winter Classic, as you mentioned, it's the Blues and Blackhawks in Chicago, on New Year's Eve. The week after, the ice is going to stay on at Wrigley Field, and the Big Ten is going to host 3 games at Wrigley Field after that. Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, and Michigan State are all playing in a little bit of a round-robin action there at Wrigley Field. And that is going to be fun. I think that's going to be a big-time deal. Now, Michigan's only playing one game. They're playing, I believe, Ohio State in that game. They're just playing one game. Michigan State, I believe, plays Wisconsin there. So Notre Dame and Ohio State Minnesota and Wisconsin kind of do they get an extra game. Regardless, the Big Ten is going to be representing that tournament, and I think it's going to be awesome to see. So stay tuned. I think all those games are going to be on the NHL Network and or the Big Ten Network, if you have that. So you'll be able to see those. I think it's going to be cool. It's going to help college hockey. That's a great recruiting tool for the Big Ten. Not that they really need it, but it's still, I think it's a great recruiting tool. And it's going to kind of open the door for later on down the road. We've talked about this in the past on our show about other conferences wanting to join. Maybe that's an opportunity because you've already had a Winter Classic game at NC State, right, with the Hurricanes. So they've already hosted one. So maybe perhaps the ACC gets something. I'm spitballing here. But, again, I think it'll be fun to watch that. So stay tuned for that. Check your local listings for those games in your area. I know the Big Ten Network's going to cover them. I think the NHL Network's picking them up too. I'm just not sure. But it'll be a good time there. So, lastly, Garrett, with our last half hour of the show, we wanted to spend a lot of time on the World Juniors. As we mentioned, the tournament starts on Thursday. They've already had a few pre-tournament games. The United States had one today in which they won 6-2 over Slovakia. However, the tournament starts on the 26th. And here's your 4 games for you on the 26th. The Sweden versus Slovakia. That's going to be at TD Place. By the way, this is being held in Ottawa. And Germany versus the United States at Canadian Tire Center. Switzerland, Chechnya is going to be at the TD Place at 5 o'clock. And Canada-Finland rounds out the evening at 7:30. And this will be a round-robin kind of tournament. So then that's Group A. So Group B is going to be Slovakia, Switzerland on the 27th, Finland, Germany, Kazakhstan, Sweden, and Canada versus Latvia. So that's your first 4 right off the bat. So that's a round-robin tournament. They'll do round-robin through the 31st, and then starting January 2nd, you'll have the quarterfinals, and it goes right into the semi, and then the final is on January 5th at the Canadian Tire Center. So,
yep. I sorry to interrupt, but there's every year when we see that schedule, I always think of one. I always think of one word, like in one thing that helps encapsulate this tournament, and it's
opportunity.
And it's opportunity and pride, right? Like this is by far, like for a lot of these kids, their legend gets made, and we've talked about it before. Their legend gets made by this tournament. Like the fact of the matter is, I get just as passionate when the U.S. plays fucking Germany as I do when they play Canada.
Absolutely, no, there's no doubt. And look, this is a showcase, and this is an opportunity for you to measure yourself against some of the top talent. We know, Garrett, that the United States and Canada are supposed to win this gold medal. There's supposed to be nobody else. I'm telling you right now, Team Sweden in this tournament is the best team coming into this. Are they going to win it? I can't tell you because so many times, how many times have we seen over the last couple of years, we'll just say 10 years, that Canada has been the best team and has not come away with gold because Team USA is there to do what? Beat Canada, just like Michigan is to beat Ohio State in football. That's the deal, right? And it's not everybody can do it, right? So the bottom line is Team USA wants nothing more than to upset Canada in this tournament. It's a measuring stick. Team Sweden, I'm telling you right now, Garrett, on paper, by far the best team in this tournament. By far the best team. But you know what? We've had this before, where Team Sweden's been the number 1 team, and guess who comes in and knocks them out? Chechnya.
Yeah.
So,
or a German team.
Or a Finland team, right? You never know what you're going to get out of Kazakhstan. They have not been they're usually bounced in the first round, but damn, we've had this before. We've had this before where Slovakia was supposed to be bounced, and they ended up medaling. So, it's just...
So I guess, Don, in terms of the World Juniors, I mean, it's going on this week. It's going to be going on. It's my favorite tradition outside of college football, but I mean, even then, college football is just an American thing. But for the most part,
right.
Where do you want to go with this? You brought this up. This is where you want to go. Do you want to dive into the rosters? Are we trying?
I think we should look at the rosters.
What are we looking to do?
So I think we should look at the rosters. I had son of a biscuit. I had it on here. I had Group B's roster. Well, not necessarily roster, but kind of a breakdown of what Group B is. And I can't find Group A for the life of me, but I'm sure I could dig it up. NHL.com did a Group B preview, okay? And obviously it's all Team Sweden right off the ripper, right? Is to be expected. Because Team Sweden's coming in absolutely loaded.
I found Group A, by the way.
You did? Okay, cool.
I found Group A.
Okay, so here's what I want to do. The NHL Network did NHL.com did a phenomenal job of breaking down each team and basically the player to watch for who could be drafted. Because remember, a lot of the players that are playing in this have already been drafted into the NHL, but some of them have not. And for example, Team Sweden, Victor Eklund has not been drafted yet. He's playing in the Swedish Elite League right now, but he is their player to watch. And they open up against Slovakia at noon on the 26th. That's going to be a game that's going to be fun to watch. You're going to have Magnus and Havlin as the head coach. But there's players that you're going to have to, that you can look out for. And apparently a blue hair has hit the floor here, so we've got sirens going off. But anyway, Sweden is coming in absolutely loaded in this tournament. Obviously, Axel Sandin Palinka for the Red Wings is going to be in there. Tom Willander for the Vancouver Canucks will play on the squad. This is a Sweden team that's just absolutely loaded. Otto Stenberg, Theo Lindström. This team is... If Sweden doesn't go into the field, they'll be shocked. So, that's what you have
for anybody who didn't pay attention last year. It was the U.S. The Americans took on Team Sweden and ended up beating Sweden last year in the gold medal game. So there will be a lot of the same. There, from what it sounds like, there's a large chunk of the Swedish team returning from last year's defeat against the United States, and vice versa with the U.S. team as well. There's a good amount of players from that team that are returning to that roster as well too. Most notably, you've got.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead and finish your point.
No, that was my point.
Oh, okay. So here's one. This is what I want you guys to pay attention to when you listen to the show. And so you go into this tournament and be like, hey, Don and Garrett talked about this. What you have for Team Slovakia, and I want to share this because this is important when you look at what the USHL has out there and perhaps even maybe the Finland junior leagues, right? So Team Slovakia has a player in Luka Rajovic who plays defense for Muskegon in the USHL. Okay? And there's Samuel Urban, who plays goal for the USHL, will also play on Slovakia. So you're going to get players that you will see every day in the USHL playing in this league. And then you have Jan Koven, who plays for the Finland junior squad, is going to be a center for this team. And those are draft-E players eligible for the NHL draft this year. So to me, that's very, very interesting. Slovakia, Garrett, could be a dark horse. Could be a dark horse in this tournament. They always are. But I think this year they could surprise you based on, they haven't won a medal in the World Juniors since they won bronze in 2015. But I do think they're kind of underrated a little bit. And you may want to watch out for them. They have a couple of really good, high-scoring players right now, like Pekarich, right? He's a player with the St. Louis Blues. He has 35 points, 12 goals, and 33 assists in 29 games in the Q right now. So there's a couple of really good players that Slovakia has. You may want to watch out for and follow in this tournament. And that's the beautiful part of this tournament. You can have your pride on the line too, like Garrett and I obviously do with Team USA. But as a fan of this game, you're able to look at some players that you're like, wow, I hope the Red Wings could look at this guy at the draft, or, we need to keep in mind of this. Because the one player that always just comes to mind when I think about this is Thomas Tatar. He was a guy nobody talked about until this tournament. So that's the opportunity that I'm talking about.
Right.
Chechnya is another team.
And there's a lot of these players as well, too. And I think that, and I'm going to keep beating a dead horse here, but the world will get their formal introduction to a 16-year-old Gavin McKenna this year, who's going to be on Team Canada, who is going to be the next wonder kid that will most likely be the top overall pick in 2026. And he's going to be on this roster. And I think that will be the official coming out party for Gavin McKenna to the rest of the hockey world. And I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Look at Habner from BC or BU. And he's a player with where the Red Wings are playing right now, have an opportunity to maybe draft second if the ping pong balls land their way. He could be a center for the Red Wings. Could you imagine having Habner and then Nate Danielson, two centers right off the ripper like that?
By the way, just
saying.
S and G's.
I like S and G's.
Gavin McKenna's only played 30 games this year for Medicine Hat out in the WHL. 19 goals, 41 assists.
And let me tell you folks something. For those of you that don't watch the W, for those of you that don't watch the W,
17.
The W is the closest thing to professional hockey that you're going to get. I'm here to tell you that the W it's spread out over Western Canada, granted from a geographical standpoint, but I'm telling you straight, there ain't no one in Portland that likes anybody from Medicine Hat. I'm here to tell you straight right now. And that somebody in Saskatoon doesn't like anybody in Vancouver. So, Garrett, yes. you watch these games. You know what I'm talking about. It is as passionate as it gets. And so when they get to see their players represent their country at this point, there's a little bit there's pride within the pride when it comes to that.
Oh,
so,
no doubt.
You know, I love that part of it. Love that part of it. So, you know, and I love how the juniors
I think, Don, from here, I kind of want to go over a few other names that I think could be ones that fans will want to watch out for. You mentioned a little bit about Slovakia. I think they're looking pretty strong this year. I know from the Finnish side they've got a couple young players that I like watching. Daniel Nieminen, he's a defenseman. He's going to be probably up there as one of the top, and maybe a little more two-way, kind of a little bit more responsible defenseman. And he's going to be available this year in the 2025 draft. And then Petteri Rimpinen will probably be one of the first handful of goalies taken this year in the draft as well. He actually plays in Espoo and SM Liga. But basically, as you would expect, I mean, U.S., Canada have the majority of the top-end prospects, if you will. The United States returning significant amount of players. I believe they're returning here. I'm looking at it right now. About 8 players from last year's gold medal winning roster. Trey Augustine's back in between the pipes for Team USA. Second round draft pick in 23 for the Red Wings. Lane Hudson used to be on that team, and his brother Cole's actually going to be taking his spot, if you will, for the red, white, and blue. He'll be on that blue line with them, and then you'll also have Oliver Moore, who was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks in 2023. He's going to be on the roster for Team USA with the presumptive number 1 pick, James Higgins, who I've mentioned before, Logan Hensler, who is tearing it up right now at Wisconsin in the NCAA. Yeah. But the two guys I think that people will also be officially introduced to are Porter Martone and Michael Misa, who I keep highlighting all the time. I think those two guys with McKenna, if those two players, and they might be on the first line for Team Canada, if those guys can carry them down, there's something about this every time, and we've talked about this off air time and time again, something about the Canadians playing at home in front of the home country, they just ratchet it up to 1,000. And I don't know how they do it. Sometimes they've come in with teams that look absolutely god-awful on paper, and they just blow everybody away. And it's maybe that Canadian pride showing through and doing what you got to do there. And, you know, it might be that Canadian pride that shines through. But at the end of the day, man, that team, that top line is probably the scariest thing I've seen in a very long time.
To your point, last year Canada did not medal in this tournament. They lost to Chechnya in the quarterfinal, if you remember correctly, right?
Yes.
So they didn't medal in this. And Chechnya as a team, as I was going to say, is a team that you may want to watch for because they're kind of a dark horse. And they're going to play Switzerland, Kazakhstan, Slovakia, and Sweden. That's their 4 games, right?
Sweden.
Those are, I'm here to tell you, they could go 3-1 and make the medal round. They could make the quarterfinal with that. I think Kazakhstan's not going to be anything very good. We don't know what Slovakia is going to bring. And Switzerland, I think, is a team, I'm not sure. But this Chechnya team, they have a kid in Edward Sale, who is a Seattle Kraken player. Great 19-year-old, 13 points, 4 goals, 9 assists in 23 games with Coachella Valley. Coachella Valley just happens to be the team that's been they were the 2-time AHL champions. Lost to Hershey last year. But again, he's bringing back the team that won the bronze medal with 7 points last year in 7 games. He'll also be joined by the Blues prospect from the WHL and Adam Jecko and Jakob Stancy, right? Jekyll's a 6', 597-pound skilled, big frame, protects the puck, 24 points, 9 goals, 15 assists in 26 games for the Wheat Kings up there with Edmonton, right? Stancy scored for Chechnya with 4 goals in 7 games last year, 32 points, 11 goals, 21 assists in 26 games for Kelowna right now for the WHL. And so, and also Harbel's coming back. Michael Harbel is coming back for another tournament. He's been drafted by the Utah Hockey Club. He's made 28 saves in net, stud. And he was also the goaltender that got the win in the 3-2 against Canada in the quarterfinal last year in 7 games. He had an .877 win percentage, or save percentage. For Chechnya. 6'6", 209 pounds. Garrett right now, .917 save percentage in 16 games. The kid's only a sophomore for the University of Massachusetts, so it's not like he's some schmuck out there. He's playing at UMass, who basically gets the best of the best out there right now. So that's why I think Chechnya is a team you may want to watch out for coming into this tournament. They seem to surprise the living piss out of people. I don't know why, but they do. And last time, like I said, they got a bronze last year out of this deal. And, Garrett, that's a team that historically surprises teams. And, again, that's why their schedule sets up very, very – they do have to play Sweden. Don't get me wrong, on New Year's Eve. But, Garrett, that could be a game that could potentially represent the pool at that point, or the group. It could be. I mean, Chechny's there.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, you're 100%. It could easily represent it. I think there's a good possibility that it can and will.
I like Chechnya a lot in this tournament. They're just a team that really surprises me. There's a couple of good players on Kazakhstan that might surprise you too. Vladimir Nikitin for the Ottawa Senators in 5 games. The 19-year-old has a save percentage of .884 in 12 games right now in the Russian Junior Hockey League, which is really good. So he's a player you may want to watch out for. That's the other thing, Garrett. In this tournament, I think this is the best goalie-laden tournament that we've ever had in the World Juniors. From every team, every single squad has a quality goaltender that can steal you games. And we've seen this before sometimes in this tournament too, where goaltenders steal games to move teams into quarterfinals that maybe you didn't think of. And so Kazakhstan kind of has that backstop there where maybe they have a goalie that can save 50 shots, right? Because Kazakhstan's got Sweden the opening night, then Chechnya, Slovakia, and Switzerland. Now, yeah, the schedule looks daunting, but Garrett, what if this kid comes in there and backstops him and he's got a 1.48 GPA or GAA, and he has 5 shutouts this year in the Russian Junior League. That's no slouch. I mean, I can't wait, man. This is going to be fun. This is going to be so much fun, and that's with Team Kazakhstan. So that's what you need to know. This tournament is just that. You just have players like that. Switzerland's bringing back a team, Garrett. I think that, I think they're a little undermanned. But again, they have players like Leon Mugli with the Washington Capitals. He's the captain of the team in 2024 in the under 18. He had 5 points, 1 goal, and 4 assists in 21 games for Zug in the National League. So, again, great teams coming in. It's going to be interesting to see if Switzerland, because Switzerland's kind of pulled the upset a couple times. So, what could they do? Neuschwander is their goaltender, Elijah Neuschwander. He's playing in the Swedish or the Switzerland league right now. Great player for them. So again, that's just Group B. You've already kind of talked about Canada and the United States. You got Sweden out there too here in Group B. So, Tom Wallander with the Vancouver Canucks is another great player. I mean, Sweden's loaded, but I'm telling you right now, there's some teams in that group that could take them out, and wouldn't surprise me one iota, not one bit.
Give some of the fans who aren't familiar with the World Junior kind of format, kind of run through it real quick, make sure everybody's on the same page.
So it's basically so the format is set up basically like the Olympics, okay? So you get placed into a group. So there's Group A and Group B. We don't have all these different groups, but it's just Group A and Group B. And so it's a round robin between your group. Okay, and then the best team by points the best teams by points will be put into the quarterfinal. So then they'll be ranked. It's basically the top 2 teams in each group, right? So that's going to give you a total of 4 teams in the tournament, right? So it's 1-4, 2-3, 1-4, 2-3, and they'll represent the quarterfinals. So you may not necessarily play your group team when you go into the quarterfinals. So you could have the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, and you're going to get the lowest seed of Group B, for example, unless the lowest seed is in Group A. It just depends on how it works out. So the top team plays the lowest team in the amount of points, and it just works its way through the tournament. And it's a single elimination. So there's no game 3, game 4 kind of thing like the Memorial. It is a single elimination.
It's a 3-round, or it's a 4-game round robin, right? So it's a
Correct.
4-game. You play everybody in your group.
Correct.
Okay.
Which begins on the 26th. Yep. And if you want to look at the games, you can pull it up via the internet. I already mentioned what's going on the 26th and 27th. The 28th, it's a lighter day because it's a Saturday. Who wouldn't want that? Chechnya, Kazakhstan. Garrett, that's a 1 o'clock game on Saturday. That could be a very intriguing game. I really think you should watch that one if you get a chance. And then they close the night with the United States versus Latvia on the 28th. The 29th, Sweden plays Switzerland. Finland, United States. That'll be fun. Finland, United States is always fun. Slovakia, Chechnya. Germany, Canada. That could be festive. Then on the 30th, you have Kazakhstan, Slovakia, Latvia, Germany. And then the 31st is the last games of round robin. Switzerland, Kazakhstan, Latvia, Finland, Chechnya, Sweden, United States, Canada. So you close the tournament, the round robin tournament with United States, Canada at 7:30, New Year's Eve. What else could you possibly want to get you to watch the ball drop, right? 9 times out of 10, Garrett, that's for the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. It probably will be again, unless Sweden takes care of business on their end. You could be playing for number 2, but sometimes you don't want that 3 seed, right? So depending on who you might have to play. So, yeah, that's the deal. That's the tournament right there. And then the quarterfinals begin January 2nd. You have a day off for New Year's Day. Quarterfinals January 2nd, single elimination. Then it goes to the semifinal on January 4th. And then the championship game is January 5th on Sunday. So you have a third-place game at 3 and then a championship game at 7:30. And that's how you round it out. It's kind of fast, but it's some of the best hockey you're going to watch, some of the most passionate hockey. And again, what Garrett was saying at the beginning, the one word that kind of described this tournament is opportunity. Because there's players that have an expectation to win this thing and take control of it, like Trey Augustine. And there's players we've never even heard of that we'll talk about on our show on January 5th. Where our minds will be blown in trying to figure out where this player came from and how he never showed up on our list. And that's what this tournament is. It happens every single year, bar none. So it'll happen
the one thing I wish we'd gotten, Don, maybe we haven't gotten it yet because the NHL's playing tonight. Most of the teams are playing tonight, and then they go on a 3-day break.
Sure.
We're recording this on Monday because, the Bills had to take care of business, which they did yesterday.
Yeah, they took care of business, I guess. But yeah,
but hey, I mean, a win's a win, I guess, when you look at it.
We
from
keep
that
doing
angle.
4:30 games, and I can't stand it. It's like we're not a 4:30.
No,
team.
I'm with you. I'm a
Especially
little irritated
at home.
about that too.
Especially at home, dude. It's
I'm a
annoying.
little irritated about that too, for sure. But anyways, the league has a 3-day period that's done.
Right.
They'll have a 3-day mandatory Christmas break.
Yep.
So games will restart on. I'm a little irritated, Don, that they don't have a roster, and every year they do this. They come up with an article of what players in each prospect pool are playing for their respective teams. And it looks like as of now, the Blues have the number 1, have the most players playing in the World Juniors. But I think the Wings have like 5 or 6 players. We know they've got James Hagan, or we know that they've got Trey Augustine, and we know that they've got Max Plant, who's playing for Team USA. And we know they've got Axel Sandin Pellikka. Outside of that, like, I'd have to go back and look at how the rosters are. I'm not sure exactly who's all playing for who. That's why I wish we had that right now instead of the day of the tournament. I guarantee you, I'm going to be texting you, Don, on Boxing Day, and they're going to come out with that list. And I'm going to say, why didn't we have that for the show? Because, of course, the NHL likes to ruin my life.
Yeah, and well, and to your point, some of the players. So right now they're playing the pre-tournament games, right? Which is going to it's kind of like the players that are playing this pre-tournament games are the ones that are on the fringe of making this tournament. And so they won't have the official rosters out probably until either late tomorrow, which is Christmas Eve, or Christmas Day. And so there's going to be players that played the pre-tournament that aren't going to play for Team USA or Team Canada or Team whatever in the tournament, because you're going to have to whittle it down. Because let's face it, Team USA, Garrett, basically has 4 lines already set, same with Canada, but you may have a kid that comes and bumps somebody out because he plays outstanding. And so I think that's why the rosters aren't completely out yet. It's just because it's compacted. I would say the only downfall to the World Juniors is once the college kids go back and start playing again after the first of the year and after Christmas, the World Juniors significantly impacts those 2 weeks in January. And those are crucial games in the Big Ten or whatever conference you might be in. And it has significantly impacted teams before and make or break their seasons because you're kind of pulling some of their best players away. It's the same thing, too, in the junior levels. So that's the only negative impact.
But it also impacts the quality of the play during the 2 weeks as well when it comes to
it always used to impact the Great Lakes Invitational.
The major junior leagues do not stop. So for those of you who think that they take the break, they do not take a break. I mean, the OHL will not take a break. The W, the Q, they do not take breaks.
They keep going, and it significantly impacts them.
The NCAA does because there's finals and it's a collegiate RAN thing, so they do that because it's the finals.
Right.
But the other leagues do not stop in between. They just play on, but obviously without those players that are representing their countries.
100% spot on. And it always used to, like I said, it always used to negatively impact the Great Lakes Invitational because when Michigan and Michigan State would go there, half their damn roster was in the World Juniors. And so they would end up getting beat by it. And they're like, how could they lose to Northern? I'm like, well, they're playing with freshmen and sophomores, and their juniors and seniors are playing for their countries. So that's how, and that's what happens. But you know what, though? I would I want to see talent on a world level, and this is what you get here. And you get opportunity. This is opportunity. An opportunity is knocking for these players to, as you said, there's players on these lists that have an opportunity to get drafted in the upcoming draft. Of course, probably every name that's on this list is probably going to get selected, but you could become a first-round draft pick on what you do over the next 2 weeks in Ottawa. And we've seen it. We've seen it time and time again. And it also gives you an opportunity to watch players that have already been selected to see how they play against their same age groups, if you will, or their same talent level. And to me, I want to see Sandin Pellikka dominate for Sweden. He's a player that's played in the Swedish Elite League right now, right? So as a Red Wing fan, I want to see him dominate this. Same with Trey Augustine. I want to see him have the same kind of tournament he had last year. I expect him to, in a way. Maybe that's not fair, but I expect him to have that. And so for the players that have been drafted, this is an opportunity to show them, hey, I'm next. I'm ready to come up now, and there's no reason to send me to Utica or whatever it might be. So I'm ready to go now.
By the way, speaking of the GLI, GLI is back this year.
It is.
At Van Andel Arena. Our friend of the program, Matt Pockets, Lake Superior State will not be there. The Lakers will not be part of the 4-team tournament, but it'll impact, I'm going to guess, will probably impact the GLI just a tad. Michigan State's going to be in the tournament. Michigan Tech, Northern Michigan, and Western.
Yep.
I think they've got a couple foreign-born players on each that might be playing in those tournaments. And now that'll be a 2-game tournament that's out in Grand Rapids, so being hosted at Van Andel Arena, home of the Grand Rapids Griffins.
Which I think is a good idea, by the way. I think that's a really good idea.
By the way, who had really cool Lions-themed jerseys they wore for the game the other night, which I thought was interesting. And I also agree with you on that. It should probably be out there. It's a good idea to get them more connected to that. It's kind of tougher to get people out this way to get jazzed up for college hockey.
It's not that. Joe Louis Arena, when it used to host it, was always pretty much open for the New Year. They didn't really have big events for New Year's. It was just Joe Louis Arena. It was a hockey arena, right? Now, Little Caesars Arena has the Pistons going. It's got college basketball going. It's got who the hell else knows what's going on. Ice Capades, I don't know. But Little Caesars Arena is a little bit more booked than Joe Louis Arena used to be. And so that's part of the problem. And so they couldn't, to spare 3 days to host a GLI was tough. And so that was the issue. And so now, with this going over to Grand Rapids, the Griffins go on the road. And, that helps significantly there. So they can host that tournament a lot better. And that's a good spot for it. I think it's a fan base that's there. It's a fan base that might be more familiar with some of the players too, because the AHL's obviously well represented in this tournament, or in that tournament. So, or will be, and so you got some draft picks in that. So that's I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all.
Sounds like sounds like Michigan Tech was the one that brought it back out there to Van Andel, and
I think it's a great idea.
Rightfully so. Makes things work out pretty good. So 4 teams playing again. It's going to be a 2-day thing. Be kind of fun. I mean, you and I have had memories of the DLI. I'm kind of happy that they're bringing it back. That they're going to be doing that over the holidays as kind of an annual tradition as well. Along with that, and we're heading to that time of year, which is beautiful. So also, I did want to throw in this caveat right now. I know the Senators are their home rink is going to be the one that's hosting the World Juniors. They're going to be going to Canadian Tire Center to, host the main competitions. They're on a road trip, man, that just looks absolutely brutal.
9 games. A 9-game tripper, and they're already 3.
Road trip. Yeah, they're already on the 4th game of that road trip. They come back after the Christmas break. They got to go to Winnipeg, Minnesota. Then they got to go to Dallas. Then they got to go to Dallas, St. Louis, and then come here to Detroit. Like, that's wild, man.
But Garrett, they haven't lost a game on this trip. They haven't lost a game on the trip so far.
They are hot as a firecracker. You are absolutely right.
They have not lost a game on this trip. It's unbelievable. It's a team that I was kind of rooting against, obviously, because of the Red Wings division. And now that the Wings have kind of slipped back to the bottom, I'm like, could Ottawa be that team that the Red Wings strive to be? Because that's a team. I'm not saying they're going to be the Florida Panthers. I'm not suggesting that at all. But, Garrett, that's a team that could get hot with Ullmark and net. Maybe get into the playoffs.
I mean, they're healthy. I mean, they're
they
healthy
are
up front, and everybody's pulling their weight for sure.
I know. And right now they have the last playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. So, you know what? If they continue to ride that, this is an opportunity. Opportunity. It's the word of the week. This is an opportunity for the Ottawa Senators. This is a 9-game road trip. This is a very young team, as we know. This is an opportunity for them to maybe bond together over a 9-game stretch. Garrett, they go in there. Let's just say hypothetically they go 7-2. What does that do for the rest of the season there? Well, I guess we'll find out. But
100%.
I mean, that's how a team gels together with a young squad like that. I wouldn't count Ottawa out. But Garrett, here we go. So rounding out the show here, Christmas gifts. If you what is your go-to Christmas gift when you just don't know what to get somebody?
Well, I usually would just get, honestly, the easiest way to do it, just get a gift card or give them money. Just give them money. Go put a $100 bill in there. Just slip it to them. Nice card. Tell them you love them. Just here. You go get what you want.
There you go. You took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what you got to do. That's the
now at the same time, if it's hockey related, which I've had some fun hockey themed gifts before. I think it's kind of fun that if you get a chance to do that. But truthfully, that's kind of the go-to, right? You put the $100 bill in, you get the nice card, and boom, then you're good to go.
Yeah, and you just kind of choose what you want at that point. It's easy to do. So, well, everyone, hey, from my family, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody, Happy Holidays. To everybody out there, thank you all again. We can't do this without you guys. Garrett, I'm sure you echo the same sentiments there for the holidays. Stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy yourselves, enjoy your family. Take some time off to relax. Take some time off and watch some hockey too, because it's going to be worth your time. And just recharge. These 2 weeks down right now is an opportunity for you to recharge. Get back at it. Just sit back, relax, eat some leftover food. Enjoy family, enjoy yourselves, enjoy your time off, and recharge and get ready for 2025. Because you know what? 2025 is going to be a great year. It's going to be loaded with opportunity for everybody. And you can't do it if you don't enjoy yourselves just a little bit. So get out there and enjoy yourselves over the next 2 weeks. And, that's all we can say. And watch some hockey, and we hope to see you in this time next week. But you know what? It's that time of the year, Garrett. Happy New Year to you. Merry Christmas to you and yours. And look forward to it going forward here with Raising the Banner.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I'm thankful for everyone who listens, for your family, for mine, and
Same.
we've got a lot. We've got a lot in the holster for 2025, and it's going to be chaos for both of us heading into the new year, rightfully so. But we'll be locked and loaded and ready to go.
Absolutely. So, everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays to everybody. We'll see you guys on the flip side. For Don Tottingham, Garrett Kaloje, we'll see you next time on Raising the Banner.